there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael Kohberger.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. And with me tonight, he's not out of Brooklyn, he's out of the Bronx, and he's a retired NYPD Sergeant and professor at Albertus Magnus College in New Haven, Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Mike Geary. How you doing today, Mike?
Good, Billy. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Well, I think you're sort of like a fan favorite, a subscriber favorite, and people like to see Professor Mike, the words of calmness,
Thank you.
bringing that calm Bronx attitude to it. So obviously, Mike, we're covering the Brian Kohberger, the Idaho 4 murders of Ethan Chapin, Zaina Kernodle, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Madison Mogan. And I don't like to just call them the Idaho 4. I want to list them as their names because they are real people. And we've been covering this case since November 13th. The big happenings that have been coming out right now, of course, is this gag order. And I don't know if a lot of people specifically know what that means. I certainly am not that versed in what a gag order is. I know basically the judge doesn't want certain things released, but how do you enforce that? What is it? Who does it apply to?
Okay, originally the judge issued the gag order, and a gag order in a case like this, especially really high profile case that's getting just not local news, national news, international news. The judge is looking forward about, 9 months down the line when you may get to an actual trial and you have to pick a jury. The judge would like to try to ensure in any way possible that the jury pool is untainted, by prejudice or having their minds already made up one way or the other about the case. The judge knows that there's no way that they'll get a jury of 12 people who don't know anything about the case. The judge knows that, but what the judge is looking for is to try to get a jury of 12 people who are at least willing to give Mr. Kohberger his day in court and listen to all the evidence submitted and only the evidence submitted during the trial, and then render a reasonable and fair verdict to Mr. Kohberger and the state of Idaho. And so originally this gag order applied to the police and investigators and people like that and the attorneys for the prosecutor's office. It has been since expanded now to include, as the judge says, any interested party, including those parties already named, such as defense attorney, prosecutor, and people like that. Also, it now includes witnesses, potential witnesses. It also includes members of the Mogan family, Gonsalves family, Chapin family, and the Gonsalves family. So all of these people are also prohibited from speaking to the press. It also prohibits any attorneys representing any of the families to speak to the press and talk about the case in substance. So it's a pretty comprehensive order, and I think it is absolutely right to do it now. And it is essential to try and come up with a fair jury pool that's not tainted one way or the other, to give Mr. Kohberger as fair a trial as they possibly can in Latah County. Bill? We might be having some sort of technical difficulties right now, but one of the problems with talking about to the press, talking about parts of the possible trial testimony is that there may be stories that are circulating in the press now that don't I'm sorry, we're having okay. That perhaps may not be admissible. So there might be stories in the press about evidence that might have been obtained that may not, that everybody would then know about and hear about, but then it might not be presented in court. And that would could inflame the jury one way or the other regarding the trial. So we want to keep the trial and the jury as fair as we possibly can. I am not sure. I think we're having some more technical difficulties. Okay. Anyway, that's what the gag order is for. It is to ensure as much as we possibly can a full and fair trial. And the reason for this is also you want to keep the press from trying to subvert any sort of police investigation, or because remember, the press is there to report the case as accurately as possible. But in this day and age, the press also can, in ways, prejudice Mr. Kohberger's chances of getting a fair trial. And we don't want the press to be tempted by getting a headline to leak some information that maybe they shouldn't have, or that may be unfair to Mr. Kohberger and conducting a fair trial. And I think we still have technical difficulties. I'm sorry. Okay, so I think we might still be broadcasting, although there is some technical difficulties. If we still are broadcasting, I'll just keep talking about the gag order. One of the difficulties is, how do you enforce the gag order? You know, it's and how you enforce it would be, since it is a court order, a person who intentionally violates the gag order may be brought into court on a charge of contempt, and they could have to pay a fine. They may have to serve overnight in jail, things like that. So you want not to get into that situation, because the press absolutely does have their First Amendment rights to give out information to the public. And that's something that is cherished in our system of law under the Constitution, specifically the First Amendment to the Constitution. But you don't want to get into that situation where the judge is trying to, bring charges, criminal contempt charges against a member of the press. That does not go well in our system of law. I think we still might be suffering some technical difficulties. I'm checking my email. No. I'll have to I'm not sure. We might still be broadcasting. I don't know. But, and I apologize for the lack of internet right now. I'm sure I'll check with Bill Cannon. Again, I apologize for technical difficulties. On the outside that we're still broadcasting, I'll just give you a quick, for instance, of what the judge is worried about. We talked the other day about the possibility that one of the items retrieved from Mr. Kohberger's Washington State University from his apartment was an Amazon Fire Stick, which would allow people to see, law enforcement to see possibly what shows that he'd been watching and that sort of thing. And I opined that at that time, that that may not, if there was something perhaps sinister on his laptop that the prosecutor wanted to introduce at trial, the judge may or may not. It's up to the judge. There's no guarantee how the judge is going to rule whether or not it's inadmissible or admissible. We saw this years ago in the Lacey Peterson case, and occasionally this type of thing happens. And that's all over the press right now. And the judge doesn't want any leaking about what is actually found, what kind of programs are actually found on his that he's downloaded. So, because if that gets out and the public gets into the general public's knowledge later on at trial, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, there may be the possibility that the trial judge will rule that that would not be allowed in as evidence, that would be inadmissible as evidence. But the problem is it has already been out in the public domain, and the jury might be overly prejudiced against against Mr. Kohberger by that act. So therefore, the judge is trying to keep a really tight lid on the evidence, and that may or may not actually make it into the trial. And that's really what the judge is worried about, is having too much information out there that may be ruled on as irrelevant and that sort of thing. And that's really going to hurt the case.